Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we will have our first focus talk on the relationship between mutations and vaccines. How does each one of those affect each other? And how can vaccines stay ahead of all the mutations? If you are new to the channel, I'm Dr. Han. My goal for this channel is to connect people with scientific facts. This includes my regular COVID-19 update and other general scientific topics. My idea is that if I can understand a topic, you can understand. If you want to learn more about scientific facts, please consider subscribing to the channel. This channel needs your help to reach more people. So without further ado, let's dive into the topic today. So like I said at the beginning, today we will look at the links between mutations and vaccines. First, a disclaimer. Again, this video is my interpretation and summary of publicly available scientific information. This video does not serve as any advice on treatment, diagnosis, and preventions of any diseases, and the commercial company I mentioned in my video, I do not have affiliations with them. First, let's look at some of the background. There have been a lot of news surrounding the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine, and it has been saying that it doesn't work very well against the South Africa variant of the coronavirus, which have a name called B1351. It's saying that it cannot even protect people from mild to moderate illnesses. What's more important is that those recovered patients from the earlier form of the virus are still contracting the disease. What is concerning is that this B1351 variant has spread to at least 32 countries, including the United States. Now, so today's focus talk is to look at how does mutations affect vaccines, and on the flip side, how does vaccines affect mutations? And how can COVID-19 vaccines keep up with a mutating virus? Focus point 1. How does mutations affect vaccines? Based on what we've seen with the AstraZeneca vaccines, it may lose some effectiveness, but the question is why? Now, many of the vaccines were designed with the first original spike protein. Now, however, many mutations have occurred in the receptor binding domain of the spike protein. The vaccines, when it's injected to our body, the idea is to allow the body to generate antibodies against the original spike protein. So as shown in the figure here, the antibody will bind to the spike protein, including both the receptor binding domain and other places, and that will in turn block its binding on the ACE receptors on our cell. Now, however, new strains that carry mutated receptor binding may make antibodies less effective. It probably won't make all of the antibody become ineffective, so it will still retain some effectiveness. However, on the other hand, some of the spike protein will be able to bind to the ACE2 receptor and infect our cells. Now let's look at this problem from another angle with the latest research preprint saying antibodies elicited by SARS-CoV-2 infection and boosted by vaccinations can neutralize these variants and as well as the SARS-CoV-1 original virus from many years ago. Now briefly, the experiment involved collecting 10 serum samples from people that are recovered from COVID-19, and these people also got vaccines afterward. Now 50% of the naturally recovered serum collected at an earlier standpoint could not neutralize the South Africa variants. However, after one shot of either the Pfizer or Moderna mRNA vaccines, there has been a 1,000-fold increase in the antibody level. It also showed T-cell immunity that were able to kill virus-infected cells. These vaccination-induced antibody can neutralize both the original and the South Africa variants. So what they find out is that with this diagram, the antibody from vaccines are not only binding to the receptor binding domain on S1 of the spike protein, but are also binding to another subunit called S2. Now, these subunits have different functions, and the S2 subunit are also less frequently mutated. So the conclusion is that it showed that recovered people can still benefit from the vaccines, and depending on the vaccine design, some can still work very well or somewhat pretty good against the mutant. Focus point 2. How does vaccines affect mutation? So in short, vaccines really does not prevent the virus from mutating, and in fact, vaccines could indeed induce some virus mutation. Now, according to some experts, the timing between the first dose of the vaccines and the second dose really is the key. So the questions remain to be answered that no one knows are: can the first dose prevent virus from replicating in the recipients? No one knows. The second question is that can the first dose of the vaccine prevent spreading of the virus? No one knows. So the end result is that the virus may still replicate and mutate in vaccinated people, and that's the figures showing the mutations happening in the receptor binding domain. Now, and these mutated variants may still be able to spread to others from vaccinated people. Now let's look at again another latest research talking about how antibodies can induce mutation. Now this is coming out from the journal article called Nature, SARS-CoV-2 Evolution During Treatment of Chronic Infections. So there was a case of a COVID patient with compromised immune system that was treated with 2 courses of remdesivir and 2 courses of the convalescent plasma, which is the plasma from recovered people that contains natural antibodies against the virus. However, this patient still passed away after 102 days. So what they've observed is that the remdesivir only changed the virus a little bit. However, each course of the convalescent plasma induced mutations in the spike protein, and the first mutation decreased the potency of the antibody but also made the virus less infectious. However, the second mutation restored the infectivity of the virus. So the conclusion of the study is that antibodies could induce mutation in the virus in a very rapid way. So the question is that could antibodies from vaccines can also induce mutation? This is something that we don't know at this point. Now let's look at focus point 3. How can COVID vaccine keep up with such a high mutating virus? So are we going to play catch up all the time? Now the first generation COVID vaccines are mostly based on the original versions. However, we've already seen a lot of mutation in the receptor binding domain since first discovery last year. Now, are we playing catch up? Now what we really need to do is utilize some of our past experience with vaccines is to look for next generations of vaccine that should target internal components of the virus. Here is the graph showing you the dissections of the virus. Now notice we are always looking at the tip of these pink spike protein. However, there are many parts of the virus we could target that have less frequent mutation rate. So I believe that should be the next correct step for biotech company to take to prevent these mutation pressured, and also finding a vaccines that can last for a longer time rather than looking for booster dose again and again. So the take-home message for today is that the new mutations may make vaccines less effective, but there are other experiments showing that depending on the vaccine designs, it may still be okay, so the answer is not definite for all vaccines. Now, vaccines does not prevent virus to mutate, that is one key thing, and antibodies from convalescent plasma have shown to induce mutations in a very short period of time, and that could be very dangerous. Now, new vaccines should be designed to target less frequently mutated areas of the virus so that we could have a vaccine that can last for a longer time. So to learn more, here are the 2 links of the articles that I read through and summarized for today's talk. You can check out the link in the description box down below. So I hope today's focus talk is able to provide some new information. Now please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. That's all for this week, and I'll see you again next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another COVID-related video. And please stay safe and healthy. Bye.